That one glorious word represents more than just the geography between the Sabine and the Rio Grande. It represents a unique idea and way of life. A life of rugged individualism, proud self-reliance, gritty toughness, and fierce independence. That is what made Texas, and that is what will save her again. Howdy, folks. Sam Houston here. I want to thank you for tuning into the Feed Bandit podcast. Feed Bandit is the Texas first outdoors brand built by rabid Texans, for rabid Texans, and all those who aim to be one someday. We unapologetically promote the ideals that shape our Texas pride and Texas first patriotism through our love of hunting, the outdoors, and the gear and apparel we create. Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Check us out at feedbandit.com. And to repeat that great rallying cry from a former colleague of mine, liberty or death. Now, enough of my talking. Here are a couple of bandits that love Texas as much as I do. Enjoy.
Howdy, friend. Welcome back to the Feed Bandit podcast. Jimmy back with you. And on this one, we're going to continue our Whitetail Strategies series. And with this being, I'd say fairly deep now into the 2025 fall whitetail season. I hope you guys out there are having some good success so far. Of course, you bow hunters, and in Texas at least, you bow hunters and you rifle hunters on MLDP lands. I'm sure there's been some pretty good harvests going on. We'd love to hear about them. Always feel free to send us a pic and a little story. That's what we love to hear of your harvest. Howdy at feedbandit.com. That'd be awesome. And if you're willing, we'd love to read it on air. So if you want to be immortalized forever and become semi-famous, send us your little story about your trophy that you got this year. We'd love to hear about it. Well, on this one, we're going to continue reviewing the book Whitetail Strategies, a no-nonsense approach to successful deer hunting, by going through the chapter called Weekend Deer Hunter. Now, that is a very apt description of me personally, and really all of us in our group of friends. One of my main goals in life is to no longer be a weekend deer hunter and be an all-the-time deer hunter whenever I want deer hunter. Working hard on that, trying to get there. I'm sure you would love to do that too, if not already. If you are, wow, man, more power to you. That's really cool. But we'll get there. But for now, let's see what he has to say about that. Weekend deer hunter. It isn't unusual for today's deer hunters to be limited to just a few days of hunting time afield. Many, in fact, only get to spend opening day and maybe a weekend deer hunting. This isn't much time to accomplish the ultimate goal of seeing and bagging a buck. This lack of hunting time afield probably accounts for the fact that in most states across the country, especially the heavily hunted Northeast where leisurely time is at a minimum, only one deer hunter out of 10 fills his or her deer tag. Here's how to change the odds to your favor and maximize your limited hunting time afield. The weekend deer hunter starts out with several strikes against him. He more than likely doesn't have a place to hunt, whether public or private. Still others, if they do have a place to hunt, don't have enough time to scout. Yet others, who do take the time to scout, still don't use effective time-saving strategies and tactics specific for hunters with limited time. The most effective strategy for weekend deer hunters is to hunt private land. Deer that inhabit lands that are not overhunted move throughout the day more frequently and less cautiously. And for all of us who hunt in Texas, we're very lucky that I think it's something like 98% of the land in Texas is private. So more than likely you are on a quote-unquote private land when you're hunting. Now, of course, then that just depends on how many people are allowed on there and how often. But that at least I had going for you in Texas. Private ground is not as difficult to find as you may think. Every state has agricultural lands, gentleman farms, which are 50 acres or less, and small patches of ground bordering larger tracts that offer potential unpressured hunting opportunities. The key is to make contact with the owners of these lands long before deer season approaches. If you approach a landowner in June or July or August, it will be much easier to obtain permission than if you ask permission just prior to or during the hunting season, dressed in hunting attire. By obtaining permission to hunt these unpressured lands, scouting becomes less important as deer naturally use these property more freely. Therefore, it is to a weekend hunter's advantage to hunt on private land. Obviously, hunting private land is not always possible. If this is your case, look for public ground that is less accessible to vehicles or ATVs or does not have groomed hiking trails. Traditionally, the masses of hunters stick close to roads or hunt backcountry that is somewhat accessible. By doing some homework, you can locate public land that does not attract hordes of hunters. Contact game departments in the state you're hunting and asking for a list of public hunting grounds, especially the less popular tracks. Hunt high, hunt low. If you find yourself having to hunt the more heavily hunted public ground, use the other hunters to your advantage. For instance, if you're hunting an area where most hunters climb high, hunt low, or vice versa. Deer will wind or sense the intrusion and change their travel routines. Many times, sensing an invasion of other hunters, deer turn around and head in the safe direction they just came from. Scouting. Successful weekend deer hunters, whether they are hunting public or private land, scout close to their hunting dates. Scouting weeks before your hunt leaves you vulnerable to a change in food sources or changes in your quarry's routine. Weather changes could alter their food source, and hunting pressure could change their travel routes. Not knowing what trails the deer use most frequently, what food sources they favor, where their prime bedding areas are located, and most importantly, what escape routes they use when pressured, can result in seeing fewer deer, or perhaps no deer at all. Weekend deer hunters who perhaps had only a day to scout prior to their hunt should concentrate their efforts on locating primary food sources. Knowing exactly what the deer are feeding on during your hunt immediately puts your areas deer used to travel to and from their bedding and feeding grounds. Depending on the time of year you're hunting, these areas could include apple orchards, alfalfa, soybean, and cornfields, or oak ridges for the variety of acorns typically found in the hardwoods. Keep in mind weather plays an important role in locating an active food source. For instance, deer may be feeding in apple orchards or alfalfa fields when the temperature drops considerably. Immediately, the deer forsake the apples and alfalfa, which are now frosted over and less palatable, and instinctively head for mast or corn crops. Acorns and corn raise a deer's body temperature and provide the necessary nutrition needed for the body to fend off the declining temperatures. Therefore, whenever there is a sudden drop in temperature, a weekend hunter should head for the woodlots adjoining fields of standing or cut corn for morning or evening hunts. Where agricultural fields are not present, deer seek out acorns to raise their body temperatures. In this instance, deer are scattered throughout the hardwoods and not as concentrated on deer trails. You should take a stand deeper in the hardwoods, especially in areas abundant with white oak. As temperatures return to normal means, deer once again begin to feed on other favorite foods. They return to feed in apple orchards and grasses as they become more palatable or tasty to the deer during normal fall and winter weather conditions. When your scouting time is short, don't fall into the typical trap of hunting only buck sign like rubs, scrapes, and thickets. Although this sign certainly indicates a buck has been in the area, it may be days or even weeks old, leaving you posted in an area that deer are not using. Even when you locate a fresh scrape, it may be wiser not to spend a lot of time hunting over it, especially when you consider that most bucks wind check their scrapes from them from cover during the safety of darkness. Obviously, the exception to this rule is actually eyeballing a buck using the area. Once a food source is located, the next step is to find the travel routes that are used to and from the area. The quickest and most productive way to do this is to locate fresh deer sign like droppings and tracks. The signs left by these two markings is indisputable. Fresh dung and fresh tracks translate into deer presently using that particular patch of woods or terrain. Hunting this fresh sign will put you where the deer are. There are several unorthodox and traditional strategies that you can use to attract deer, rather than wasting time waiting for a buck to meander by. When hunting time is limited, you can use scent, both food and attracting aromas, mock estrus trails, mock scrapes, or different calling tactics. These techniques are covered in detail in the chapters on scent, calling, and scrape hunting. Quick calling. As I've said before, one of my favorite ways to hunt deer, especially on lands that I haven't hunted before or where deer are not moving as willingly as they might, is with deer calls. This tactic can be part of the Weekend Hunter's Emergency Kit, and we went over that part of the book several episodes back on the Whitetail Strategies, so go back and check that out. As you've read, deer are extremely vocal animals. Using a call to deceive a wary old buck from cover works more readily than most hunters are willing to believe or admit. There are a variety of calls to help us attract deer to your stand. Among the most effective cadences of the primary calls are the estrus grunt and blat, the alarm distress snort, and the locator blat. These particular calls are designed to attract deer by what they naturally represent, vocally. One season, I had only one afternoon to bow hunt a farm I regularly hunt in Hope, New Jersey. I didn't want to spend the entire time waiting for a buck to pass by my tree stand. I decided to use a snort call to help me get the deer up and moving about. As covered in the calling chapter, the alarm distress cadence of the snort is used by deer to warn other deer of immediate danger. You can use the alarm distress cadence of the snort to intentionally spook deer from the rhododendron, steep ledges, swamps, evergreen patches, and standing cornfields. This is a great tactic when hunting time is limited. It is one of the rare instances, other than a deer drive, when a hunter actually uses his own human odor as well as a call to help him rouse the deer. The other calls mentioned above can also aid you in seeing or attracting deer more quickly. The trick is to read the chapter on deer calls a few times so you learn and become confident in using the different calls. Or, stated another way, the trick is to listen to the podcast where we discussed deer calls several times, take some notes, and take those calls out to the field. Another strategy to help maintain or to manage your hunting time is to lease or get permission to hunt a piece of private ground. Without a doubt, hunting on posted land greatly benefits the weekend-type hunter. Unfortunately, many hunters are bashful about trying to secure a piece of land. They shy away from asking permission because they don't want to be told no. If I've learned one thing about deer hunting, it is that when approaching properly, most landowners, even if they say no the first couple of times, will, in the end, be receptive to giving permission to hunt their land. You may not consider this a strategy. I guarantee you, however, it is one of the best hunting strategies you will learn. Mastering the ability to approach a landowner to provide you with permission to hunt his property is as important a tactic as any other strategy you'll read in this book. I approach each landowner with a clear idea of what I want to say and how I want to present my case to him. Deer hunting with a limited amount of time on public or private land doesn't have to be frustrating or futile. By being creative and using unorthodox type hunting methods, you will create deer hunting opportunities for yourself, no matter how limited your deer hunting time is. Try the above suggestions this year and see if they don't work for you. So there you go. That's some of those things may sound pretty obvious to do, but, a lot of times with life going by so fast and, we just don't have time to take stock in, what we need to do. And all of a sudden it's, November 1st or whatever, we're sitting there thinking, oh man, I only have one weekend. When is that one weekend going to be that I can get out there? Because the kids are in sports or this, that, and the other. Who knows what it is? The wife has planned a lot of things on a lot of weekends. So you got to make the most of that time. And, those are some pretty good suggestions on how to do that, I reckon. I am lucky enough to have some land to go hunt at. And we have other people that go out there. So there is some, I guess you can call it built-in scouting that goes on there. But, take stock of what he recommended there, and certainly keep your eye open on land that's around you. If you know there are deer out there, maybe those people just, no one's ever approached them to actually lease their land. It's entirely possible. And it makes me think about some of the land that's around where I am. I would be willing to bet, I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt just to ask, and to find out and see what's out there. Because it would be kind of cool just to get up from my own house and drive not far and go sit in a deer blind, somewhere around here. That would be very convenient, of course. But anyway, just a few tips and tricks there on maximizing your limited time out in the field. That's not what any of us want to have. We want to have unlimited time, but life is what life is, right? So, and we gotta figure those things out. So anyway, with that, I'm going to leave you on this one. I hope you got something out of that. Again, go check out feedbandit.com and take a look at our hats and our camp polos. I guarantee you there's probably at least one item in there that you would really like to have. Anything you do really helps keep this podcast on the air, so we'd really appreciate it. But with that, thank you so much for listening. Remember, support your local feed store. All right, you take care.
Well, I hope the Bandits gave you an interesting episode that either entertained or educated you. Or better yet, both. Hell, I told them this podcasting thing looks harder to do than defeating Santa Ana. So if you would, please help them out by sharing it with all your like-minded friends to help the Bandits get the word out. And don't forget to check us out at feedbandit.com and grab some gear and apparel to support the cause of Texas. Remember, Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Finally, as I said some time ago on the eve of the great battle, and I vigorously repeat here again, be men, be free men, that your children may bless their father's name. Well, fellow bandit, until next time.